A surprise re-emergence, the follow-up to 2019's Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion, was shown off at the April Nintendo Direct earlier this year. Again developed by Marvelous, the open-world action sequel follows a pilot who crash lands onto a world referred to as the Ground, and effectively becomes a mercenary for a resistance group. While the gameplay loop genuinely grew on me, the bland environments and uneven performance put some rust on this mecha. Despite a decently compelling set of antagonists in the Noin, with whom the hero shares a complicated background, gameplay remains the obvious focus of Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. After an awkward, red-saturated start, the experience opens up a fair bit once you enter your main base and are introduced to all of the ways you can progress your character. Specifically, you are given a customizable arsenal suit that can be adapted to match your playstyle, with quicker melee weapons like a laser sword, or heavier ones like a comboless mace. Your suit's other hand can hold a second melee weapon, or better yet, a ranged piece like a machine gun or assault rifle. Add to that a shoulder-mounted missile launcher, and you've got a recipe for mechanized disaster. By defeating enemy arsenal or other foes, you can loot their remnants for new gear to upgrade your current holdings or perhaps sell for money. An interesting aspect of the looting mechanic is that you can choose only a single piece to take with you, even if there are multiple items available. This is true even at the conclusion of boss encounters. The result is that such decisions, coupled with a fairly dense introduction of gameplay systems, can be overwhelming or potentially confusing. You could choose to read all of the tips and tutorials or just pick it up as you go, and either path should eventually lead to steady progress. Some of the major boss fights against evil military group the Noin require you to change up your accessories and strategies, and it is fun to figure out what works best against these tough opponents. The fort and its underground base serve as your hub for acquiring and completing missions, talking to NPCs, and outfitting your arsenal. You'll return here often with the currency you've earned, gear you've acquired, and minerals and materials you've harvested. Fast travel points make it easy to head out into the world to achieve your objectives, like escorting an NPC or destroying a specific target, and then quickly return to base before taking on the next mission. There isn't always major fanfare between main chapters in the story, so it can be difficult to discern exactly when one ends and the next begins, giving more credence to the notion that the narrative of Titanic Scion takes a backseat to the world and what the player chooses to do within it. One of the most enjoyable aspects of the sequel is jetting around the world in your arsenal. From almost any point on the map, you can engage your thrusters and float or blast through the air towards your next destination. Spending time opening up fast travel points and supply stations by flying from the fort reminded me of Xenoblade Chronicles X and also BioWare's Anthem. The combat itself can be clunky at times, but the joy of movement largely makes up for it. The side missions are also a bit repetitive, so I didn't end up completing too many of those, but there is a coliseum where you can climb the ranks in one-on-one battles, and this ended up being a good way to test out different builds and earn some spare parts. There are other ways to improve your character based on specific materials you find in the world, especially after encounters with bosses and mini-bosses called Immortals. It feels like there are a number of options in terms of customizing your character and their arsenal, but understanding the hows and whys of it all does take some time. One specific system involves taking biological pieces back to a lab and altering your character's genetic makeup to bestow new weapon techniques and passive buffs. And as neat as this was, I either didn't harvest enough of what I needed to get more moves, or didn't upgrade the lab enough for it to make meaningful changes. With Titanic Scion coming to all major platforms, while also being a Switch 2 specific release, taking note of how it looks and runs was a key objective for my time with the game. In short, the Switch 2 performance definitely leaves something to be desired. Frame drops and hitching are common occurrences, especially during combat, and for an action game that is trying to be faster than its predecessor, such issues are hard to ignore. The performance did improve with a day one patch that was applied during the review period, but there's still some work to be done in this area. Even though it's far from unplayable, a smoother, more stable performance could really help Titanic Scion shine. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion has a neat premise, and fun ways of customizing your character and your arsenal to meet the different combat challenges found in its world. It's unfortunate that the world itself feels lifeless at times, with repetitive enemy encounters and side missions. The best moments are when you come across a gigantic immortal that you just know will require the combined might of co-op partners, be they real or NPC. But you make a solo attempt anyways, only to be smashed to pieces, which is no doubt a humbling experience. Those interested in online multiplayer will be glad to know that the whole campaign is playable cooperatively. But unfortunately, I did not have a chance to check out the cross-platform multiplayer for myself, and I am concerned that online play could further compromise how the game runs. If you're not afraid of a bit of jank and some performance hiccups, Titanic Scion offers a good time in short bursts. That said, the cracks do begin to show through a little more during longer play sessions, and ultimately, the sequel appears to have taken only baby steps ahead of its predecessor.
This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.